Have you ever felt that your attention has weight? Not just the ability to fixate on something, but an invisible, almost magnetic force that reorganizes the world around you. What we call attention is not just a mental gesture. It is as if it were a beam that alters the subtle fabric of reality, a silent shot that awakens or erases possibilities. Modern science confirms what ancient traditions had already intuited. Every focus we sustain is also a quantum choice, a cut in the infinity of probabilities. However, there is a forgotten law, the law of coherent attention. Not that scattered, anxious attention that breaks into fragments and drags us along, but the attention that pulses in alignment, that becomes a bridge between the invisible and the concrete. This kind of presence does not just observe, it summons. It does not just perceive, it shapes. And yet, we spend an entire life trained to lose this power, trading it for glittering distractions, for noises that hijack the inner gaze and leave us orphaned from our own vibration. Perhaps you have never heard of this law, because it is not in school manuals nor in rush self-help books. It vibrates between the lines of what physicists call quantum coherence, but also echoes in the practices of silent masters who knew how to sustain attention like one who holds a flame against the wind. This law does not need to be invented. It only needs to be remembered. And if you follow me to the end, you will realize that attention is not just what you offer the world, but what the world is begging to receive from you. Have you ever noticed how attention behaves like an invisible electric current? The more intense, the more capable of lighting up something that had remained unlit. Neuroscience describes this as selective focus. The brain activates specific circuits, silences thousands of peripheral stimuli, and enhances the chosen object. But what brain studies only brush upon is the vibrational dimension of this act. Because focus does not just illuminate a point inside the brain, it reconfigures the dance of particles that sustain what we call reality. Quantum physics shows us that the universe is not solidified in a definitive way. It remains as a field of probabilities until an observation collapses possibilities into concrete form. Attention, in this sense, is not passive. It is a creative trigger. By fixing our inner or outer gaze, we do not merely notice, we crystallize. This is not magic in the popular sense, but a much deeper architecture, where each focus is a line of force capable of bending matter in specific directions. And here is the forgotten detail. It is not enough to observe anything in a scattered way for coherence to arise. What truly unlocks this power is the quality of attention. If focus is fragmented, contaminated by anxieties and interruptions, the quantum field finds no stability. It is like trying to create harmony in a choir, where each voice sings a different melody. The result is noise. But when attention organizes itself in coherence, like a symphony following the same score, the field responds differently. Probabilities converge, particles dance in unison, matter bends before a gaze that knows how to sustain presence. This law, lost amid technological noise and inner races, had already been intuited by spiritual traditions long before receiving a scientific name. The ancients spoke of keeping the eye of the heart fixed, of cultivating presence as if it were a flame protected by invisible hands. Today, we translate this language into terms of neural and electromagnetic coherence. Research from the HeartMath Institute, for example, shows that a state of focused attention aligned with stable emotions generates a coherent heart field, capable of influencing not only the body, but also the surrounding environment. Attention is not just a mental function, it is a vibrational field in action. And the more sustained it is, the more it establishes order where once there was dispersion. That is why we feel clarity after moments of deep focus, not because we simply understand something better, but because the very fabric of reality around us responds with greater sharpness. It is as if the universe were waiting for the call of our presence to organize itself into more consistent forms. You may have already noticed how everything that receives our attention grows. A small problem observed obsessively becomes a suffocating labyrinth. A creative idea, nurtured by focus, expands until it becomes a project. This is not merely a psychological metaphor, but a structural principle. Attention acts as a quantum nutrient. It feeds, stabilizes, and directs. Where there is no attention, probabilities disperse and remain unstable. What we forget is that the quality of this focus defines the type of reality we build. Attention taken by fear generates unstable coherence, a field in turbulence. Attention anchored in clarity and openness creates a field capable of sustaining synchronicities, healings, and unexpected movements. It is not about controlling life as if manipulating a machine, but about recognizing that life responds to what we choose to sustain with constancy. Realizing this is like the curtain of a theater opening for the first time. What seemed random reveals its hidden logic. Coincidences cease to be mere accidents. They become responses to what you fixed in your heart and mind with enough intensity. Attention, instead of being just a function of the mind, appears as a law, one of the secret gears that keeps the universe in coherence. And it is at this point that remembering this law becomes urgent. Because we live in a time in which attention is continually hijacked. News, screens, notifications, inner races, everything competes for seconds of our gaze. Each distraction is a break of this law. It is as if we were giving the energy of creation to fragments that do not deserve so much power. Forgetting this principle makes us weak before external forces. To recover it is to recover not only focus, but the key to a life that responds in sync with our presence. Deep down, this forgotten law is not complicated. It can be described in scientific or spiritual terms, but its essence remains simple. That which you sustain with coherent attention, the universe sustains back. That which you feed with stable focus gains body, resonance, and form. It is not sorcery, while it is subtle physics, and it is also spirituality in its purest state. If in the previous part attention appeared as an invisible electric current, now we can perceive it as a kind of secret architecture. Think of an underground city. Tunnels, chambers, corridors that remain hidden until someone lights a torch. That torch not only illuminates, it awakens the function of each room, gives life back to what seemed inert. Coherent attention is that torch. Without it, the underground of reality remains dormant, potential without form. With it, the corridors gain function. The passages are revealed and the hidden city begins to pulse. The curious thing is that our mind, by scattering in many directions, tries to light hundreds of torches at the same time. The result is a weak brightness, incapable of revealing the entire path. But when we direct the energy consistently, the underground city responds. Singular focus does not mean rigidity, it means a vibrational call that repeats like a steady beat. It is this rhythm that organizes the invisible space and opens passages that were once impossible. Spiritual traditions knew this in different ways. Monks kept their attention on a single sound, like the repeated strike of a bell. Shamans sustained their gaze on the flame of a fire until the flame itself returned images and answers. What looks like ritual is, in fact, training in coherence. It is the practice of turning attention from a disordered flicker into a sustained column. Physics also suggests a powerful metaphor: the laser. Ordinary light is dispersed, its waves colliding in various directions, but the laser is the opposite. Waves in perfect sync, moving in the same direction, producing much more power than the sum of its parts. Coherent attention is an inner laser. It pierces invisible obstacles and activates possibilities that scattered light could never reach. It is at this point that a symbolic practice comes in. Close your eyes for a moment and perceive attention as if it were this laser beam. Feel that it may be diffuse, jumping from one thought to another, or it may align. Choose a single point within yourself, the rhythm of your breath, the beat of your heart, or even a subtle sensation in the center of your chest. Stay there like one who holds a taut string that vibrates without breaking. That string is not a prison. It is a sonorous path that keeps all notes in harmony. By doing this, something surprising happens. The body begins to respond as if entering a field of greater order. The heartbeat stabilizes, the mind slows down, and a dense sense of presence settles in. This state is a simple sample of what we call quantum coherence applied to attention. It is not a distant theory, but a tangible experience that anyone can access. We can also use more earthly metaphors to feel this law. Think of the work of a sculptor. Faced with a block of stone, he does not get lost in 1,000 directions. He fixes his gaze and hand on a specific point, blow after blow, until the hidden form appears. If at each strike he changed focus, the stone would become only noise of marks. But by sustaining attention on the vision of a hidden figure, the sculptor transforms the inert into a work of art. Life is no different. Matter responds to the hammer of our focus, to the chisel of our coherence. That is why we often feel that something does not move, not because there is no energy, but because our energy disperses like water seeping through cracks. Coherent attention, on the other hand, is like channeling that water to turn a water wheel. The same force that before was lost in multiple paths now generates real, palpable, almost inevitable movement. That underground city, that torch, that laser, and that sculpture are not just poetic metaphors. They are maps of a practice. By understanding attention as creative energy, we can train its direction, sustain its rhythm, and allow the invisible to become visible. Quantum coherence ceases to be an abstract concept and becomes something felt in the body, in the environment, in the synchronicities that begin to arise. The world is not asking you to become a machine of focus, but to rediscover the delicacy of sustaining presence with firmness, like one who lights a torch and keeps it alive, even if the wind tries to extinguish it. That is the power of the forgotten law, to transform dispersion into clarity, noise into music, potential into reality. So far, we have spoken of attention as light that reveals, as a laser that concentrates, as a sculpture that frees itself from the block. But what if that same force were not just an individual choice, but a collective mechanism? And what if what you sustain with focus not only shaped your life, but also the field of everyone around you? Most believe that attention is an intimate gesture, restricted to the mind. However, recent research shows that the heart field, activated by states of attentional coherence, can expand several meters around the body. In other words, your way of sustaining presence may be silently altering the people who cross your path. Here the rupture is born. Up to this point, you believed that attention was just a psychological resource to improve productivity or inner clarity. But the forgotten law points to something much more radical. Your attention is a creative force that reverberates in the shared quantum field. It is as if each focus you sustain became a transmitted frequency, capable of aligning or misaligning those nearby. It is no exaggeration to say that the way you look at the world redraws not only your reality, but the collective fabric in which we all breathe. This discovery requires a new responsibility, because it is no longer just about keeping focus to achieve your goals, but about understanding that every cultivated distraction, every gaze contaminated by fear, every focus fed by resentment generates incoherence that goes beyond the limit of your skin. And at the same time, every focus sustained in clarity, compassion, and stability expands as an invisible field that reorganizes entire atmospheres. The rupture is feeling that the universe does not just wait for your attention, it responds to it. And it does not respond in a neutral way, but coherent with the quality you deliver. It is as if each gaze were a wave cast into a lake, reverberating in directions you will never fully measure. This perception may seem uncomfortable at first, because it takes us out of the position of spectators, but it also frees us. After all, if each of us carries this key, we are not condemned to live in external noise. We can be points of coherence in the midst of chaos. Think of a discordant concert. Everyone plays disconnected notes, creating sonic confusion. Suddenly, a single musician finds the right pitch and holds it, without yielding to the chaos. Little by little, other ears notice and begin to align. The entire concert reorganizes, not by imposition, but by resonance. Your attention can be that musician. By sustaining coherence, you not only transform your inner world, but influence the collective melody even in silence. It is precisely at this point that the forgotten law reveals its most paradoxical face. You do not control the universe, but you participate in it creatively. You cannot decide what everyone around you will feel, but you can sustain a frequency that will inevitably touch every person who comes into contact with your field. Attention is not just a tool, it is transmission. And in this recognition, a shock of perspective sets in. What you feed in silence may be writing the future much more than your words or visible actions. Therefore, the question is no longer just, what am I focused on, but also, what kind of field is my attention radiating to the world? This question breaks paradigms because it transforms something seemingly private into a collective act, almost political, almost cosmic. The coherence of your attention is also the fabric of reality that we share. And now I want you to take this beyond reflection. If this content resonated with you, keep coherent attention in a small gesture. Like this video as a sign of presence and write in the comments the phrase, "I choose to sustain coherence." Do not do it as an automatic response, but as a vibrational commitment. Each written word is another wave that reinforces this collective field. At the point where we understand attention as a transmitting field, arises the need to embody this concept through narratives that have always accompanied humanity. The forgotten law is not new. It echoes in myths, legends, and stories that have crossed generations. Each culture, in its own way, has told us that attention is capable of opening invisible portals and sustaining worlds. One of these stories tells of a guardian who remained alone before a river of mist. There was no bridge or boat, and all who approached gave up, believing it impossible to reach the other shore. The guardian, however, kept his eyes fixed on the flow of the waters. Days, months, years went by, and his gaze did not waver. People mocked him, calling him a fool for wasting his life there, standing still, sustaining a useless gesture. But over time, something began to happen. The river, once murky and agitated, began to calm. The mist gave way. And one morning, when the sun touched the surface, a crystal bridge revealed itself, stretching from one shore to the other. It was not built by hands, nor brought by engineers. It emerged as a response to the guardian's unwavering focus. This myth, which appears in different versions in both Eastern and Western traditions, symbolizes the essence of the forgotten law. The guardian did not manufacture the bridge. He did not force reality. He simply sustained coherent attention, and the field responded. The river that seemed a barrier transformed into a passage, and what was once laughter of disbelief became silent reverence. This story resonates deeply with our lives. How many times do we give up before the bridge appears? How many times do we abandon a focus because the external world seems not to respond at the speed we want? The truth is that the bridge of reality rarely shows itself immediately. It requires the discipline of the guardian, the courage to sustain presence even under mockery, even in the face of uncertainty. That is the forgotten part of the law. The field responds, but the response has its own rhythm, not that of our anxiety. If we bring this narrative to a closer level, we can think of the figure of the mother who repeatedly sings the same song to a baby. The song does not change the external world, but organizes the internal world of the child, creating coherence amid the chaos of the first days of life. This loving attention, sustained without hurry, is also a creative act. The baby calms not because it understands the lyrics, but because it receives the field of presence that voice sustains. Or else, let us recall the figure of the blacksmith. Before molding iron into a sword, he keeps his gaze fixed on the fire, waiting for the right point when the metal yields. If he gets distracted, the iron hardens and is lost. It is attention, sustained with patience, that allows the birth of form. The guardian, the mother, the blacksmith, all remind us that reality responds not to haste, but to repeated coherence. This same logic can apply to us in any everyday gesture. The way we listen to someone, without dividing the mind into 1,000 distractions, is already the practice of the forgotten law. The way we walk attentive to the contact of the feet with the ground can be the guardian's training before the river. Attention does not need to be reserved only for extraordinary rituals. It can be cultivated in simplicity, as long as it is maintained like a flame that does not let itself be shaken by the wind. By revisiting these symbolic images, we realize that coherent attention is not a spiritual luxury, but a condition for life to reveal itself in depth. The guardian only discovered the bridge because he remained. The blacksmith only shaped the sword because he knew how to wait. The mother only transmitted security because she sustained her song. Without these gestures, the river would only be a barrier, the iron only rigidity, the child only crying. The forgotten law of attention is this discrete force that has always been present in myths, in the hands of artisans, in the voices of mothers, in the eyes of those who refuse to yield to noise. It does not reveal itself immediately, but responds with implacable precision to what we choose to sustain. And by remembering these stories, we rescue not just a theory, but an archetypal heritage that asks to be lived again. The guardian before the river, the blacksmith before the fire, and the mother with her song remind us of something essential. The coherence of attention is not theoretical, but practical. For the forgotten law to pulse again within us, we need to step out of the field of ideas and allow the body, the breath, and direct perception to become instruments of this remembrance. Close your eyes for a moment and let the mind rest on the breath. Do not try to control it. Just notice how the air enters and leaves, as if the universe itself were breathing through you. With each cycle, feel that there is a resting point at the end of the exhalation. Stay in that point for a brief moment, as if it were the secret pause between one step and another. There, attention finds natural silence, a fertile ground to reorganize itself. Now, bring to consciousness a simple image, a luminous circle pulsing in the center of the chest. It does not need to be intense or perfect. Just visualize it as if it were a gentle ember, emitting light warmth. Direct your full attention to this circle without fighting the thoughts that arise. They may appear, but do not follow them. Return to the circle, again and again, like one who returns home. This constant return is the discipline of the guardian before the river. Remain like this for a few moments. Gradually, notice that this circle seems to gain consistency. It is not only in imagination. The body begins to respond with calm. The heart finds a more stable rhythm, and the mind feels like water resting in a serene pond. This is the first layer of coherence. Sustained focus creates internal order. But the practice does not end there. Expand perception slightly, as if this circle began to radiate subtle waves around the body. Feel that this field extends beyond the skin, touching the space around you. No effort is needed. Just maintain stable focus and allow the resonance to spread. This is the second layer. Internal coherence becomes a shared field. Now, introduce a simple intention into this field. It does not need to be an elaborate wish. It may be a word like clarity, healing, or trust. Repeat this word silently, letting it rest within the circle. Notice how the word vibrates, as if it were a seed planted in fertile soil. This is the third layer. Coherent attention gives form to specific directions of reality. Perhaps you notice subtle changes, the body warmer, the breath deeper, the mind less noisy. These signs are not accessories, but confirmations that attention, when stabilized, produces physiological and energetic order. Studies show that states of sustained focus reduce the chaotic variability of the heart, generating harmony between brain, emotion, and body. In spiritual terms, it is as if the mind and heart knelt before the same music, and the universe responded to the chorus. This practice can be done in just a few minutes, but the more frequent, the clearer the effects become. The secret is not duration, but consistency. Like the blacksmith before the fire, it is not about a single strike, but the rhythmic repetition that allows the iron to take form. Each time you return to the circle in the chest, you reinforce the field, like one who blows on embers until they become a steady flame. The exercise can also be carried into everyday situations. While walking down the street, keep attention on this circle for a few seconds, as if each step were nourished by it. During a conversation, keep part of your presence anchored in this ember, even while listening and speaking. Little by little, you will notice that this silent coherence alters not only your state, but also the atmosphere around you. People tend to feel calmer, dialogues flow with less friction, circumstances organize themselves in unexpected ways. The practice of coherent attention does not require a temple, complex ritual, or excessive time. It only asks for discipline and delicacy. It is like tuning an instrument daily. Without tuning, any melody sounds confused. With tuning, even simple notes become harmonious. Your attention is that instrument. Quantum coherence is the tuning that allows your life to play the music that was hidden in the strings. By practicing attention as a tuned instrument, we realize that it is not about rigid effort, but about a state that reveals itself in constancy. Life no longer asks for more rush, but for presence. What seemed chaos slowly shows itself as ordered fabric that responds to the focus you sustain. The forgotten law is not a distant promise. It is the most intimate way of creating reality. Each gaze, each gesture of presence, each silent repetition of the circle in the chest is a way of saying to the universe, I am here whole, and I allow order to manifest. This law has always been with us, hidden in the stories of guardians, mothers, and artisans, but covered by the haste of a world that trains us to scatter. To recover it does not mean to change who you are, but to remember that your attention is already power, that your focus, when coherent, is bridge, is fire, is song. The quantum field does not wait for complex formulas. It responds to the simplicity of the sustained gaze, to the stable vibration of one who dares to remain. Let this remembrance keep working within you after the video ends. Do not conclude. Breathe. The real is approaching. And if you made it this far, write in the comments, my attention is creation. I want to see who walked with me until the end. Take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel if you want to receive more content like this and continue sustaining this field of presence with me.